Hello and welcome to Consolation League, a Warhammer podcast hosted by myself, Scott,
And me, Paul.
and we are two brothers that like to play and complain about our performance in Warhammer games and leagues. Hence the title of the show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're well placed in this league. That's what I can say about it.
We're squarely in the bottom ranks as we should
Yeah,
be.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
on today's episode, we're going to just talk about a couple things around some list building that I've been trying to do with the Leagues of Votan, some of the struggles that we've been having in test games and other games that we've played since we last spoke to everybody. And yeah, that's kind of where we're going to kick some stuff off.
Yeah, I mean, I know after our first episode, it was obviously a huge hit, and I think we made at least 25 views, so it's pretty happy with that. But I don't know who the viewers are. Some of them obviously I do know, but I'm a little suspicious. I think that Games Workshop may have followed us, because no sooner do we talk about boarding actions to the following week in Warhammer Community, boarding action supplement coming out
Coming
for
out.
10th edition.
And I was
Yeah.
reading through the article, and I'm really excited about this.
Hmm.
It looks like it's going to be kind of them pulling all of the Arcs of Omen stuff into one book with some
Cool.
refreshes and stuff happening. Because obviously, if you had to go through all the Arcs of Omen, which I think there was like eight of them or something like that, six to eight, there was a lot of them that came out that had supplements about boarding actions.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I think there were four Arcs of Omen books, but I think each White Dwarf issue that month, I think, also included a boarding action,
Quite possibly.
something
So
like that.
they're pulling it all together and kind of putting it in one kind of solid book for you. The other thing that they're doing is they're actually expanding it so that you can have up to four players going at a
Oh,
time, which
that,
is kind of neat.
yeah, that will be a lot of fun. I wonder what the point size will be
I
for
th
that.
I think it'll still be the 500, so you'd end up with like a 2,000 point game in total,
Right,
but 1,000 points on either side.
right.
But the other thing that they're kind of doing that they did with combat patrols is they're cultivating some lists for you to make it easier.
Okay.
I don't think like boarding action or sorry, combat patrol, you're beholden to their lists. They're just kind of making it easy. So they give a couple of the Gene Stealer cults kind of profiles that you can play through
Oh, okay.
in
To
the
build your
article
list.
to
Yeah.
help show you kind of how to build the list a little bit. And then they've got some fantastic art. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what boarding actions is like. You've got just this mass surge of just bodies coming at you and kind of
Hmm.
fighting in these tight corridors. And then they're showing you some of the maps and how to put them together and things like that. So really cool article. If you're looking for it, warhammercommunity.com, search up boarding actions. It's from the 17th of July.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I certainly was super excited um, when I saw this link come out. And recently, I played a mission of Zone Mortalis for Horus Heresy with a friend and a member of the local Horus Heresy group here. And it's my one of my favorite plays to favorite ways to play Warhammer, hands down.
Mhm.
That close quarter fighting, the uh, having to navigate your
Yeah.
units through those tight quarters, the strategies involved, it makes for a really fun way to play the game, and
Hmm.
plays a little bit faster than the full game does.
Definitely. That's what's
But
great about it, though, is that it plays faster and it plays more cinematic. You
mhm,
feel, and you feel like, I mean, the whole thing with Space Marines and different factions is that it's a limited number of these guys. So
yeah,
it's like you get that feeling of, okay, I've actually got a strike squad there. I've actually got just a small squadron of these guys. And like it or not, they're all that's between success and failure for the Imperium potentially, or whatever it
yeah.
happens to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. The close quarters combat and the terrain are just awesome. And I mean, you don't have to buy the boarding action terrain. People can make do with
No.
whatever they have at hand. But
Oh yeah.
I love this style of play. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's a nice break from the usual type matches. Even though we're still in Pry and Nexus, we're still in the new games,
Yeah.
new missions and secondaries and whatnot. But it's still exciting to have even more ways to play this game. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to when this will hopefully be out by the end of summer. Who knows?
Yeah. We'll
It's
see.
hard to say.
It's hard to say because
They
they've
just
had a lot of announcements. They had this one.
Imperial Agents, a
Yeah.
new codex for Imperial Agents they've announced, and then the box to go with that, and I think the new Inquisitor model. And then
Mhm.
this morning they announced Blood Angels.
Yeah.
Because today, the date, well, as we're recording this right now, it's July 29th. And yeah, today's Warhammer community update was the Blood Angels box and codex coming out. I think,
Which I'll pull it up quickly because
yeah.
it is, I mean, it's just awesome looking, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's a very cool looking box. 10 jump intercessors, I think 10 regular intercessors,
Yeah.
a chaplain with a jump pack, which I think is chapter specific. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Lamarty's. He's,
Oh, okay.
and he
Named character.
looks fantastic. This model looks incredible.
Yeah, it's a very cool skull head, typical of the chaplain style.
Hmm.
The jump pack looks amazing. I mean, the way they painted it up is just next level. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's a another named character. I think it's another chaplain character.
Astorath.
Yeah, big vampire type character with black
Yeah.
wings.
Yep,
Very
another.
cool.
The models look great, and they're refreshed to look a little bit more size appropriate to the
Okay.
rest of the line. So they're kind of refreshing everything like that. They're not using the Primaris wording anymore,
Mm,
but the sizing is definitely kind of
okay.
getting out there. So yeah, there's the
Yeah.
intercessors and stuff.
Yeah. It's a cool box.
Hmm.
Just another thing to throw money at, I guess, somewhere down the road.
I know, and I'm just thinking like, oh, maybe I will start a little Blood Angels.
Yeah. What does red look like to you, though?
Yeah, I mean, this is the challenge is that red, I'm colorblind, so red
Yeah.
sometimes is it's a tricky color for me to see. But
Yeah.
this is Death Company, so they're all in black, so I'm good.
They're all in black, so at least most of them are in black, so that'll be easy. It's the other ones when you have to
Yeah,
start painting them red that who
yeah,
knows?
that'll
Who
turn
knows
into a
how that'll
problem.
go.
But more in line with what I'm currently facing off with and
Mm,
building my list off is the Leagues of Votan. And
yeah,
White Dwarf 503 is going to have a whole thing on the
I
background of the kin, their history, their technology. It's going to have, I think, some crusade specific rules for them, according
oh
to the
cool.
article.
Hmm.
So I don't know that it necessarily refreshes anything for their index, um, the oath band, right now, but I think it's going to add a lot more depth to really this brand new faction that hasn't had a lot of expansion as far as I can tell,
I
really.
expect what this will kind of do, this article in the new White Dwarf, I wouldn't be surprised if it highlights a little bit of what you can expect from the Codex.
That would be
And
nice. That would be really
I
cool.
remember when this army launched in ninth, they had those different. I can't remember what the name of it is. I'll say factions, for lack of a better word. I think there's a specific
They had different, well, there was different leagues and inside them.
leagues, of course,
Yeah,
of
there's
course,
different leagues inside. So yeah, you had the Ymir, you had the Trans something Alliance. You had a whole bunch of them
right.
in there. The
So
Arthurian League. It was
I imagine this article will remind everyone of what each of those leagues are, and more
yes,
importantly, what kind of actions they do. Oh, this is
yeah.
a combat league, so you can expect it'll give you those hints of okay, this is what these new detachments are going to look like.
I hope
I'm going to
so.
have a shooting detachment. I'm going to have my combat detachment. I'm going to have my advance and charge kind of detachment or advance and shoot kind of detachment. I might have an
Hmm.
infiltrate detachment. It's funny looking at the cover for the new White Dwarf looks great. At the very
Hmm.
top, it almost looks like one of the league's. outfits are all in yellow, almost like, and they're
It's
shooting their big bolters at stuff. So I'm like, well, that's going to be the shooty detachment.
yeah, yeah, it's going to be really interesting because even they've got a picture of even an orc standing there and a guy just kind of sneaking up behind him. It looks
Yeah,
a little bit like so. They might
yeah,
have, yeah, the infiltrate, the different stuff. Hopefully, we get some new models. They did just release
for sure.
the Jaegers into the kill team, which you can now bring
Hmm.
into your actual list, so that you can get infiltrates into your game, which is an interesting thing. I've never been able to get infiltrate to work properly for me, so I'm
Right.
curious how some people can do it.
Hmm.
But yeah, this was really cool, and I think you're right. I think GW, if you are listening and you'd like
I know they
any
are. They subscribed. Hit the like
it,
button.
if you want to throw any preview codex our way, then we would be more than happy to review
Yeah, more than happy to take an early preview through it and
I think that would be
and
fun.
enjoy it.
Yeah,
All
yes,
right, so let's talk about your space dwarf quest. You're
yes.
determined to make this
Come
army work.
come hell or high water, I want to make it
Mm,
work. I've played 3 games now, right now
in
with
the last 2 weeks,
in the
yeah.
last couple weeks. I had
Hmm.
played, I think, 4 games, 4 or 5 games before that, between ninth and 10th, kind of first coming out with the
Yes.
index first releasing. And basically, what I had had at that point was just the army boxes with
Hmm.
1 Hecaton and I think 1 Sagittar.
Hmm.
So, not necessarily the best for building a 2,000 point army or really
Okay.
going out with full effort into it because the army boxes that first came out really had a call, Uthar the Destined,
Hmm.
their one named character really,
Yeah.
an Einhir champion, and then a bunch of warriors and their bikes.
Right.
Now
That's right.
warriors are battle line. They're 1 wound. They have like a five
Hmm.
up save. They're really squishy. They've got a
Hmm.
5 inch movement. They're not
Right.
getting very far. So unless you've got a transport, they're not really
Hmm.
going anywhere. So the army really that I was trying to play with that list really suffered from having any movement, any board control or anything. So I kind of discount those first few games because I didn't have what I needed to actually play a good game. They were
And those
probably
warriors, they don't have scout or anything like that, do they?
they have nothing fun like that. No, they
Okay.
can have access to a 6 up feel no pain if
Hmm.
you get somebody out, but a 6 up feel no pain is like tricky.
Yeah. No, no, I mean it's a one in
So
six chance, right? It's a
yeah,
long shot. And they almost have like a guard kind of feel to them, right? Because of
yeah,
that. They've got some guns with punch, but they're pretty fragile, it
yeah, they're
seems.
extremely fragile. So and really the main mechanic of the whole Leagues of Votan is holding a grudge. So they have their what they call judgment tokens. A lot of people refer to them as grudge tokens.
Hmm.
And what it is for 1 judgment token, you get a +1 to hit. And if they have 2 judgment tokens, they get +1 to hit and +1 to wound. So you really
Okay.
benefit. So you and a lot of their guns are either hitting on 4s or 3s. So instantly you're dropping to a 3 and a 2 on a lot
Right.
of their guns. So that's really good. They're also they are on par or a little bit stronger than Space Marines.
In what
So
way?
in their toughness, they're like T5 instead of a
Okay.
T4.
Hmm.
Some of their guns are in the T5 range. So again, they're punching just that little bit higher.
Right.
So you're able to either drop from a 4 to a 3, or in some cases a 3 down to a 2.
Right.
And so that really improves your shooting and things. So you really
Hmm.
want to be getting judgment tokens onto people. The trick is the way to get judgment tokens onto people is in a 2,000 point game, you can hand out 4 units, get two
Hmm.
judgment tokens apiece. So you've got
Immediately off the hop. Turn one.
immediately right off the bat. And they don't necessarily, they might have changed this in the FAQ, so I'd have to look, but they didn't for when it first came out, they didn't have to necessarily be on the table. So you could hand it to somebody in deep strike.
Right.
So you could hand it to any of those people. The other ways to get judgment tokens is by having your enemy kill your units
Right.
or by having a call with line of sight on a unit, grant one to that unit that they can see. Those are
An
the
additional one.
an addition one or an additional one.
Hmm.
So it's really challenging to get
Hmm.
additional tokens onto people
Right.
without having your army just whittle down and whittle down.
Right.
Um, so that's kind of where the challenge comes, and that's why I'm trying to kind of figure out, okay, well, how exactly do you play this,
Hmm.
and what do you do? So along a little while ago, we talked about how you have to be willing to sacrifice units. And that's
Yep.
really the bread and butter of the warriors, your battle
Hmm.
line. They
Hmm.
provide sticky objectives
Hmm.
and they're good cannon fodder.
Right.
Um, so
What
what
are
you have,
they? Sorry, go on.
no, I was going to say, go ahead.
What are the points cost for a brick of 10 warriors?
100, 100 points for
100
10.
points.
But
Hmm.
if you take a Sagittar, which is currently at 115 points, you
Hmm.
can split that 10-man unit into two groups of five.
Okay.
So you've then got two units that can then go out, sticky an objective, die, and get judgment tokens onto potentially other units.
So you could sacrifice basically one. So do they count as two units when they
Yes,
divide into fives?
yes, they're
So
two
for the
separate units.
purposes of judgment tokens, then if you lose five of that 10-man group that's off, say, on another objective or performing an action of some kind, it
Yeah,
gets wiped out. You still have your 5-man brick somewhere else,
yes,
and you get the advantage of handing out a judgment token.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so typically what I've done is I've split them up. I take
Hmm.
two units of them, so I've got 20 in total, split them
Hmm.
up, put them into, and this is kind of a preview of my final list that I've got,
Sure.
split them up into two Sagittars. So then I've got four groups of five kicking
Hmm.
around, and I've got one group that just sits on the home objective and screens out and keeps it sticky,
Okay.
um, and that kind of thing. And then I try and use the other two for movement blocking or screening, and then have another one that I'm trying to figure out what to do with that third unit, whether I throw it in reserves and use it to do something in a later part of the game,
Hmm.
or really just sacrifice them at some point because they've only got a 5-inch movement. There's not a lot
Yeah.
that they can do.
No, it's with that short move, they kind of really do need those Sagittars. And you've
Yeah,
been collecting and building up your Sagittars. You're
I
at how
I
many
have
now?
I have six of them.
You have six of them.
Yeah, I have
So
the
you could
max.
really do with another unit of warriors.
I could. Yeah, I could
Hmm.
do another unit of warriors. It just gets a little pricey. So that's
And not
that's
just
kind of,
dollars and cents. You're
yeah,
talking about points.
yeah, and the points. But one of the other things that goes on with the leagues is that I've been trying to do, and I've seen a lot of other people's lists, is they have the warriors, they
Hmm.
have their terminators, which are called Hearthguard. I
Hmm.
absolutely love these things.
Those models are awesome. Like I
They're
really like the models.
The models are fantastic. They can pump out a lot of shots. They've got a
Hmm.
2-up save. You can throw them into deep strike if you want to, or if you've got them in a group of five, you can throw them into the big tank, the Hecaton land
Right.
fortress.
Do they
Um,
have an invuln save?
they don't have an invuln save.
Mm,
The Hessier, who's like their sergeant,
right.
could have an invul save if you give him one of his
An enhancement.
loadouts. It's a loadout for him,
Mm,
or it's a wave field crest, or it's a teleport crest. So you got to pick which one you really want to go for, and it's only on the one guy. So it's
oh,
whether it's
okay.
helpful or not is really debatable. But you throw them with a champion,
Hmm.
because the champion's got a built-in kind of tank shock.
Right.
So he gives them re-roll charges. So the
Right.
great thing about these guys is they've got mass gauntlets, so they're
Hmm.
like power fists basically, and they've got devastating wounds weapon, and they've got grenade launchers built in on them. So you're doing like
Right.
a ton of shooting, and
Hmm.
then you can get them into melee and really mess something up.
How many can you take in one unit?
You can have up to 10 in one unit. That will
Okay.
cost you about 300 points.
Okay. Super expensive.
So very expensive, but
Very
in
expensive.
all the games that I've played with them, they have performed in every single game.
Yeah, they make up their points.
They earn their points, no
They earn
problem.
their points back. So maybe a little risky. I mean, a 10-man brick gives you more survivability. How many wounds each?
They are only 2 wounds each
They're
on
two
a
wounds each.
2-up save, and
Yeah.
most of their guns are hitting on threes. But if you've got a
Hmm.
judgment token, you're hitting on
You're hitting on
twos.
twos. Yep.
So it turns
Now,
them into
so
really lethal bricks. Even in a group of 5, you can really mess some things up,
right.
which is what I've
Um,
done. I've taken them in, I've got 3 of them in groups of 5
mhm,
inside 3 hecatons, which I then move up the field, drop them out. And the hecaton has a cool ability where if your unit gets out and the hecaton shoots first, whatever it hits doesn't have to wound it. Whatever it hits, um, any unit that disembarked from it has
mhm.
reroll wound rolls.
That's great.
So
That's
you're
cool. That's
with
a yeah. It's
with
almost worth not deep striking them,
yes,
giving the sergeant of each unit the wave crest or whatever, the one
yeah,
that gives him the invuln, and use him to tank the stuff that's like high
yeah,
AP, and then try and get them.
yeah.
Now the hecaton, how many points is it?
It is 225, I think.
Okay, so you're at 450 for the 3 squads, and then you're at 675 then for the 3 hecatons.
Yeah, yeah. It's so there's
It's
half
a
your
lot of
points.
cheddar.
It
Yeah,
is.
a lot of cheddar.
Yeah. But they are, I have to say, running the 3 has proved to be, in the last game that I played, proved to be really good.
Okay.
Um, and so I'll give a little bit of a refresh. So I
Yeah, but
went
also before we dive into because you've played 3 games with them,
3 games.
pretty close together.
Yes,
Um,
with little
uh,
tweaks along the way, and to
Little
2 of
tweaks
them
along the way.
specifically.
Yeah, because I want you to tell me about, like, let's go through them
Hmm.
in chronological order. But before we do that, I just want to ask, with the Warriors, because I remember I've played your
Yeah.
Hearthguard before, and I remember the grenade thing being pretty punchy, and of course their actual melee combat being pretty
Hmm.
hard to deal with. But the Warriors, they have like the bolter.
They have a bolter or an ion blaster, which is
Hmm.
like a step down from a plasma. So the bolter
What's
gives you more shots with no AP.
okay?
The ion gives you 1 shot per, but I think it's 1 or 2 AP and 1 damage type of thing. So you get the
Oh,
AP, you don't get as many
right.
shots.
Is
There,
the bolter strength 5 or is
I'll
it
have to
strength
double
4?
check. I want to
Okay.
say 4, but it might be a
Okay.
5. But they're hitting on 4s.
Right. Right. Yeah. So they really are kind of a cannon fodder kind of unit.
They're
They're designed to hand out those tokens.
Yes. If you
Okay.
put them with a call and
Hmm.
you've got judgment tokens on something, the call is a little bit like
Captain.
the apothecary biologist,
Oh, okay.
in that he gets lethal hits on all of that unit.
So that's
So
good.
it's
That
good.
helps them punch up.
It helps them punch up, or if you throw a Grimnir in with them, they all of a sudden go from a T6, that's T5 to a T6. So then they're a lot tougher
It's a
to
little bit
deal
more
with,
survivable. Yeah.
a little bit more survivable. So
Hmm.
there's some things you can do to them to try and keep them on the field, but realistically, you kind of want them to die so that
Hmm.
you can get a
Yep.
judgment token.
Yep.
Um, and I had
Yeah.
a situation like that in one of my games where, um, I'll get to it in a little
Okay.
bit, but it was one of those where I was like, oh, I wish he'd killed that unit.
Yeah. 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 I mean, just off the top of my head while we are talking about this before you get into your games, but it almost sounds like to me, and I am great at building lists to defeat myself. um, I mean, that's kind of the running joke because I've played a lot of like games with family and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and I'll be like, "Oh, here's a list for you to play," and it wipes the table with me like every time. I've never won a game in my own home. Um, but off the top of my head, when I think about those warriors, it's not worth putting a character with any of those units
It's really not.
because of the judgment token thing, right? You're
Yep.
the trade-off. But anyways, so let's talk about your experience with
So,
this army.
so the first list that I took out, I had 2 hecatons at the time, and I think I had done two hackathons, and I think I only had the one Sagittar at the time. So it wasn't anywhere near kind of a full list. Again, it was
Hmm.
it was just before I'd gotten some stuff and was building it and that kind of thing. And I went up against some Grey Knights, and I just wanted to test out the
You want to play
army
a game?
again and see exactly how do they
Mm,
do, like how does the mechanics of it all work again, like remind myself what works and doesn't work in the army. So I took one of their I took some melee focused guys. They're called berserks.
okay. Tell me
They've
a little bit more about them.
they've got, I think it is a 6 up save. I think it's a 6 up feel no pain. It could be a 5 up
Mm,
feel no pain. But they have a fight on death if they die in melee.
okay. So
What
nothing, if they get shot off the board before they get to you, forget it. I take it
they're
movement is
move
like 5 inches again.
5 inches.
Right.
You can do a loadout where one of them gets a mole grenade launcher type of thing.
Okay.
But really they're not doing much unless they can get in combat. And then in combat, they've got a -2 AP and a flat 3 damage.
Right.
Now, that's what you want them for. They are 100 points like warriors, so they're essentially cannon fodder as well,
Okay.
but they can do some melee.
Hmm.
Um, Spoiler alert, I have never had them work, and so they're not in my list.
So, spoiler alert, they're more on the fodder side
They're
of
more on the
anything.
fodder side, and unfortunately, anything that has killed them has already had judgment tokens, so they have done nothing for me but take up points in the army.
Right. I guess that's a strategy for playing against Votan is to use your already judged units to do most of the heavy lifting for you.
I mean, chances are the units that have been picked for the judgment tokens right off the bat are the ones that are going to be the heaviest hitters.
Hmm.
So, yeah, if you get turn one and can come into Votan,
Yeah.
that might be a good strategy.
Or as a Votan player, it might benefit to put the judgment tokens on the squishy units.
You can do it that way. And it depends entirely on kind of what's on the
Yeah,
table
of
and what the
course. Yeah,
deployment kind of is going to look like or
sure.
does look like, and go
So
from
sorry,
there.
go ahead. Tell us about your game one.
So game one with the Grey Knights did not go smoothly.
Hmm.
There was, I think it was two grandmasters, like the in the big knights, in the big with the baby carriers is what they refer to
Right.
them as.
Yep.
There was two of those, and I think three other ones that were just Nemesis Dread Knights on their own. So these things can shoot, these things can
Yeah.
hit, these things can move. So they just kind of, and I didn't play KG because I was like, I don't really know
Hmm.
what this army does.
Yeah.
So I kind of went out there and I got it handed to me pretty
Wow.
quickly. I stuck in until I think the fifth round, and I still had one or two bodies left on the table. So I didn't get tabled.
Hmm.
Um, I actually had a call running around with some warriors at the time,
Right.
and the call himself was taking out 2 to 3 Terminators
Wow.
on his own in combat, um, because he's able to punch above with some judgment tokens and
Right. Of
with
course.
his mass gauntlet, his power fist.
He's
So
basically guaranteed to hit and guaranteed to wound. Yeah.
yes, and he's doing like flat 3 damage on things, so he's just taking things
Right.
out pretty easily. So the warriors in that actually hung in for, I think it was 2 solid rounds of combat with some Terminators. Um,
Cool.
but what the army has no response to, which I learned very quickly,
Hmm.
is mortal wounds inflicted from Vortex of Doom from
Right.
librarians, which just hand out
Right.
mortals and wipe things out, no problem.
Because you have no feel, no pain whatsoever.
Got
Right.
no feel, no pain for on any of the characters. The best you've got is on some of those berserks, but nobody's wasting their time doing a vortex on them because they're so squishy that they can just take them out with
Hmm.
shooting. And maybe the 6 up on the warriors themselves, but again, the
Yeah.
vortex just is
It's a
wiping
long
things out.
shot.
I had
Right.
I had my one named character. I had Uthar the Destined, who's actually on paper really good,
Hmm.
because he can reduce at least once per battle, I think it is, or once per phase or round. He can reduce damage to one. Doesn't
Right.
matter what it was. He could take a Magna Rail to his face, reduce that damage to 1. He's 5 wounds. He can change one of his rolls to a 6 whenever he
Hmm.
wants. His gun's got devastating wounds. Again, it's only doing 1 damage, but so
Yep.
he's a tanky little guy. Like he can hang in there for as long as he needs to. But he's got no feel, no pains. So 3 librarians showed up and just literally just turned him
Destroyed
to
them.
mist, and he was
Hmm.
gone instantly. So that game didn't go well. I think it ended. Final score was like maybe 40-90 type of
Right.
thing.
And this is
So
Pariah Nexus.
this is Pariah Nexus. This is playing all the most recent stuff. I had
I
forgotten to do
remember.
some of my strats, but I don't think I
Yeah.
had the loadouts on anything to really be of any use or benefit.
Right.
So that one was disappointing, but it was a
Okay.
learning experience, and I was okay with that. I was like, okay, I think I know what I'm going to do with my next list.
What was the mission? What was the
Uh,
primary? Do you remember for that one?
I don't remember for that one.
Okay, no big deal.
I think it was Taken Hold. I would say Taken
Oh,
Hold.
okay.
I think it was Taken Hold and Fog of War,
Hmm.
was the kind of thing, and maybe it was no, I can't remember the deployment.
Okay.
Um, then game 2, I went out, and this one I went with my 3 hecatons. I went
Okay.
out with almost my same list, except I think it was 3 Sagittars with, again, Berserks in them to try
Okay.
and get them out there. I was fighting Tau, which was an interesting one.
Hmm.
Um, and so me and my opponent kind of looked at his list, looked at mine, and we were like, oh, I might actually end up tabling him. We
He thought you would table him. He
He
thought the
thought I would.
Votan were going to table him.
We
Okay.
thought that for sure.
Now, what was different from the first list, the Grey Knights list, to this one? What did you changed?
I had added some more Hearthguard,
Hmm.
and I had added a couple more Sagittars and the Berserks. I think I had 3 squads instead of just 1 or 2 from the first one, and I had the extra Hecaton.
And what
Um,
did you pull out to add those things in?
I had dropped some characters,
Hmm.
and I think one of the warriors, one of the groups of warriors. I'd
Okay.
swapped them out for a berserk and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I went with, I think I just had the 2 Einherjar champions,
Hmm.
which are 60 points each. So that's only 120
Yep.
points.
Yep.
So like dropping additional, like calls are I think 70 points each. Uthar is
Right.
about 80 or 90 points.
Okay.
So dropping them out instantly just freed up a lot of points for me to throw in a couple extra things.
Right. Right.
Um, so it was really just trying to refine that existing list and
Hmm.
play like, okay, I've got 3 hecatons now. This should do a lot of damage. I had put the SP conversion beamer on them,
Okay.
thinking that this gun would be really good,
Hmm.
because it has conversion, which is on if your enemy is outside of 12 inches, you've
Hmm.
got criticals on 4.
Okay.
It's crits on 4,
Sounds great.
and it's got devastating wound or so sustained on that.
Okay.
So you're like, oh, it sounds great.
Sounds
It's
awesome.
2 shots.
So
It's
you're
only
really
2
fishing for
shots.
the sustained.
You're
So you're
really
hoping for two
fishing.
fours or better. And is this
Yes.
sustained one or is this sustained two?
I believe it was sustained 1, but
Okay.
you've got the strat. They've got a strat where you can get sustained 1 on whoever you're shooting, and if they have a
Right.
judgment token, it's sustained 2.
Okay.
So there's something that you can do, but it is only 2 shots off the bat.
Hmm.
A lot of people, I looked at the recent list from WTC that
Hmm.
came out just last week, where everybody's kind of submitted their lists, and I think every hecaton that's out there is running these conversion beamers.
Right.
Um, I could not get them to land a shot the entire game.
Wow.
So
Unlucky.
and that was like, so that's 6 shots across
Hmm.
every round that I had. So that's only 6. And
Hmm.
if they landed a shot, I was playing a Tau player whose army had, there was the retaliation cadre. So I think they had invols, and I don't think they had any feel no pains outside of some characters, but they had like a 4-up invol on some stuff.
Yeah.
And I just
And
could
some
not
stuff
get
has blown
through.
up.
Some stuff is lone op, some stuff has
Hmm.
stealth.
Hmm.
And so it turned into just a complete nightmare,
Right.
where I couldn't land any shots. I couldn't land any hits. My berserks, once again, were just getting flattened. Um, I did some, oh, and on the Grey Knights list that I was playing, one of my vehicles exploded and I had to
Mm.
get my team out and I lost half the team on the roll. So it was just this comedy of errors where it was
Yeah.
just like I
You
just
roll 5
couldn't
dice
roll
and you
it.
rolled 3 ones, and you're like, "Okay, thanks for having me."
Well, this has been fun.
Well, this is also typical. So,
so, so this is
what are you
why
gonna do?
I'm at the bottom.
Yep. It all
Yeah.
makes sense. It all
So
makes sense.
then I played that, and again, we played through the game, and I scored half the points that the other person scored.
Right.
Um, so it was another one of these where, okay, something's not working in this list. I'm not getting the volume of fire I'm looking for.
Right.
I'm not getting, because Votan is supposed to be a shooting army. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I just don't see it. I'm not seeing the shooting happening. So I licked my wounds, sat down, re-looked at my list, and was like, to hell with this.
Mhm.
What are the guns that are giving me volume? Some AP,
Yep.
but volume.
Yeah.
And so that's what I made the change with on my hecatons. All added the Matter auto cannon, which gives them 6 shots each. Um, I think it's a D3 sustained on something else that I've got. Um,
Now, this is in lieu of, like, the Magna Rail gun
this
and
is
that
in lieu of the
conversion
big
beamer.
hits because again, they're doing 1 shot for the Magna
Yep.
Rail, which is great if it can land because it's D6 plus 6. So it's doing a
Yeah,
ton
it's
of
strength
damage.
18, it's, like, AP -4, so it's
It's
cracking open Land Raiders, yeah.
it's doing what it needs to do if you can roll it.
Yes.
And the idea is that you're shooting it into something with a
Judgment
judgment
tokens.
tokens.
Yeah.
Um, so, and that was the other problem I made with the Tau list. He had 2 giant riptides
Mhm.
behind buildings, and I
Yep.
made the mistake of being like, I'm not going to put judgments on them. I'm putting him on the other crisis suits and other things that are going to come in because they're the ones that will be shooting a lot at me and have
Right.
movement and can come at me with all of the sighting and guiding that Tau can do. Big mistake. Big mistake. Because my hecatons, I was like, my hecatons will be able to take care of those without judgment tokens. This will be fine.
Right.
No.
No.
that was
Huge
that was
mistake.
not that was not Scott made a big mistake
No.
there. So that was a learning experience. So I came home quite dejected, thinking like, okay, am I actually good at playing Warhammer, or do I just suck at this
Or do
game?
I just take all these models and put them on eBay for
just,
$5 and
just
call it a day?
burn
Yeah.
this whole thing to the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
Um, so I did that. I looked at my list and I was like, okay, I
Mhm.
want to see what I'm actually doing wrong because this is a shooting army, so it should be shooting and I should be
Right.
landing something here.
Yep.
So I re-looked at the loadouts. I found the weapons that actually have more volume, some AP, but more volume.
Mhm.
And then added in, got rid of the berserks completely, added in another thing of Hearthguard, um, dropped the Sagittars to just 2, increased my number of pioneers again so that I've got more bikes for more movement and things like that, and just decided, okay, this is what I'm going to go with. Reached out and found somebody that was willing to play a game the very next day. And I was like,
Nice.
okay, so got out there. What was interesting was there was a custodes list.
Yes.
Never played custodes before. So I was
Right.
like, okay, this is going to be a real test because this army can
Mhm.
punch. This
Mhm.
army's got feel no pains. This army's got
Yep.
invols.
4
They've
up
got
invulns.
2 up saves. Like
Can
this
move,
army,
can deep strike,
it's got
has high
movement.
OC. Yep.
So I was like, okay, this is actually going to be another learning experience. But I thought to myself, if I've got volume, I've got this, I've got the bodies to screen, and I know what I'm doing. I'm not bad at this game. Like
Okay.
I'm going to do something. If they beat me, it is going to be
Mhm.
close.
Right.
Um, and so that was kind of the attitude I went in with was like, okay, I'm not losing this. I am not losing this game. Um, and I went in and I got second turn.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't
Which
get
is
to,
bad for them because
which is they would want
they
me
would
to come
want
out
second
first and
turn.
everything.
Yeah.
So I
And you're
managed.
playing on WTC layouts for these.
I was playing at WTC, yeah,
Yeah.
for these ones.
Right.
So this one we had adapt or die. I think it was um, it's the corners one that
Yep.
you get. I can't remember the name of that one. And uh, linchpin was the thing. So
The
what?
mission roll.
Yeah. So linchpin is 3 points for your objective and 5 points for every objective beyond that that you control.
Oh, that's the primary mission.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then adapter die was for picking your secondaries twice per battle. If you're playing tactical, you
Mm.
can pull an additional card to see what it is and then get rid of one of the three that you've got.
Okay.
Basically, is what it ends up kind of being. So you're never kind of stuck with, you're hopefully never really stuck with a secondary that you can't do that turn or that you can't do by the second turn type of thing, which was really good. So ended up playing him, moved out my hackathons, did some screening, disembarked people, had put throwaway bodies where they had to be in order to
Hmm.
actually block charges and things like that. The downside for him was that I literally had judgment tokens on, I think, 75% of his army because
Well, I
it's a
mean,
custodes list.
Custodes army list, right?
So,
Like, so it's an elite army.
yeah,
Very few models on the board. Each one of those
yeah.
golden guys is very precious.
Yes, I think I had it on four of the six that he
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
So it was kind of going to be a tough slog, but again, he's got invols, he's got feel no pains, he's
Yep.
got some of those
They're tough
strats.
models. Yep.
So we went the full 5 rounds. I wiped out everything but his land raider. And the
Wow.
the land raider was the one thing it went into a unit of bikes, and I was like, oh, just kill them so I can make it easier to take you out to
Yeah.
get it, because it was the one unit I didn't throw a judgment token on because I was like,
No.
I'm not going to waste a judgment token on this thing. I want it
Hmm.
to. I'm just going to hide from it with everything else that
Hmm.
I've got, and see what I can do. And it kind of played out exactly as I wanted it to. I got good secondaries.
Nice.
I ended up winning by, I think, 26 points.
Awesome. Awesome.
Um, so it went really well. I felt really bad because I've been in the other side where I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. So I paid for like at critical hit, I paid for the table, I paid for whatever drinks he had type of thing, and
Gotcha.
just was like,
Nice. Good
okay,
sport. Yeah.
I'll
I like
cover
it.
this one because I don't like, I was like, I'm sorry. And he was gracious. He was like, I don't see why.
Hmm.
You just played the game.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I know, but I've been on the other side where it's been like a big point discrepancy and you don't feel
Hmm.
great. Um, but it was a great game. I mean, it was up until turn 4. We were actually neck and neck for points.
Yeah.
And then I just wiped out all his units on the primaries and moved in, and then just scored the two primaries from 4 and 5.
So what did you move in onto those primaries? Because I take
Uh,
it you shot him off of,
I
you
shot him
just
off of
whittled him
things.
down and you shot him. Volume of fire, I take it
Volume
is
of
what you got
Fire.
rid
I
of them.
did he came in with some, I think it was Alaris Terminators
Yep, they're Terminator. Yeah, the Custodes
at
Terminators.
at
Yep.
one point, and he charged into a unit of my Hearthguard.
Hmm.
I had a second unit of Hearthguard that were within the 6 inches, so I heroically intervened with them.
Nice. I never do that
It was my
strategy.
first time doing it.
Yeah, I'm like, I barely understand how it works.
I felt like a champion though, because I came in and I wiped out two of them in combat. So there was, or no, I wiped out one in Overwatch.
Okay.
I wiped out another one in heroic intervention, which just left the one guy. And so he ended up fighting into my squad, killed one of the Hearthguard, and then the rest of them just wiped him out.
Right, volume of fire, kind of, or
Volume,
volume of
and
attacks.
I had a champion on one of the sides, so I just had him come in with his hammer and just
Right.
obliterate him. Um,
Now, how does the heroic intervention work exactly? Who got fight first? He fought first?
I got the fight first because what it was the unit that charged in
Yeah.
got to intervene and fight first. So they have to be within 6.
That's how.
They have to make the charge roll, and then they get in,
Okay.
and then they get to intervene in the fight, and
And
then the
so,
rest of the fight continues.
and that's they can intervene just after an enemy unit has charged you,
Yes, if
but they
they're
have
within
to
the 6 inches,
within
if they're eligible to
within or wholly within.
within 6,
Within 6. Okay.
and they would have been eligible to charge on your turn as
Right. They
normal
can't.
type
They
of
couldn't have
thing.
advanced. They couldn't have. They can't be performing an action or doing something else. Right.
Right.
That makes sense. Very spicy. I
Yeah.
like it.
So it was like I did
Very.
that, and I was like, oh, this has worked
Oh.
out perfectly.
Oh.
Everything that I wanted to work out was kind of working out.
Mm-hmm.
But then he had one unit of Valorous at the end of the game that had no judgment tokens on them, because
Right.
this unit did. And he got to see just how bad the shooting can be when there is no judgments on them. Like I had to put 3 hecatons, Hearthguard, and a Sagittar into them to do any kind of damage to them,
Right.
to like wipe them out. So I had to pump like my entire army into them to actually wipe them out when they had no judgment tokens.
And I think those Alorus, like, it's a unit of 3, isn't
It's a
it?
unit of 3, so it's not
I think it's 2, and you pay for an extra guy. I think
it
it's
could
base
be.
2, and you. I think so, but yeah,
It
they're
took a
tiny
hell of a
units.
lot. Yeah, it took a hell of a lot
Yeah.
to take care of them. Um, but yeah, it was a great game that way. So we were trading things back and forth.
Right.
He had a couple bum rolls, unfortunately, that he didn't make some saves, didn't make
Yeah.
some shooting. His Land Raider, I don't think, did much shooting at all.
Right.
Its las cannons and stuff just completely whiffed
Right.
most of the time.
Was
Uh,
your rolling on point? Like your rolls were better this time,
my
or
rolls
were
were
they just
better.
average?
I think they were mostly average, but it was
Okay.
volume. I had a lot of
Yeah.
volume, which is where the benefit was. Like the Hearthguard themselves, with one of their weapons, it's on a squad of 5 of them, gets 15 shots with this
Wow.
one weapon.
Okay.
So you're hitting, and if they've got again judgment tokens, half of those at least are going to be hits, and then
Because it
you're
takes
getting
a 4 to a 3,
takes them down to a 2 actually.
a
So
2.
you're
Okay.
even getting less, and then you've got and then I think you can go from a 3 to a 2 or a 4 to a 3 depending on the toughness of your enemy, and it's all of a sudden you're wounding a lot more, so they're making more save throws, and your chances of going through are a lot higher, which was what
Okay.
I wanted to kind of have happen with the thing that I learned from playing the Tau and
Hmm.
the Grey Knights was that I just wasn't getting volume.
Right.
um, and that was a trick that I had learned when I was playing my Imperial Fists with my
Hmm.
aggressor squad. It may not be a high AP or any AP, but if you've got the volume there, you're forcing saves, which means
Right.
you
They're
are going
running
to
a
wound.
they're running a chance of losing wounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
You are definitely probably going to at least wound once.
Yes.
Sounds great. So what is this list?
So this
Walk me
list now is 3 hecatons,
through. Okay.
2 Sagittars, 2 units of 10 warriors that can get split, obviously.
So 5, 1 unit of 5 on foot, and then, or do you put 1 unit into the 2 Sagittars and then you keep
I
10?
put yeah, I split my units into I split both units into
Nice.
fives. So I've got
Yeah, that's
four fives.
exactly. Yep.
And then I put one on the home objective. The other one, I'm struggling to figure out what to do. I might throw them in reserve just to have them as a body that I can throw down and turn 2 or 3 into a
Okay.
different table quarter type of thing. Or I can always advance them out into the line of fire if something doesn't have judgment
Yep.
tokens and just have them go.
Yep.
Um, or I can deposit one group of 5, have the Sagittar come back, pick them up, and go
Yep.
out again, and that kind of thing. I've got movement there. 3 squads of 3 pioneers, so 3 bikes, which have
3 squads of 3 bikes,
yeah.
which
So I've
have
got
scout. Yep.
scout and a 12-inch movement.
How many
So
points is one of those?
90,
They're
90
cheap.
for 3. So they're cheap. So you
They're
can
very
get
cheap.
some people run 18 of them because they do 6, 6, and 6. And then
Well,
you've got a lot of bikes out there.
and they have a few wounds. I think they're 4 wounds apiece, aren't they?
There's 3 wounds apiece, and I think one of the guys has 4 wounds. The one
Okay.
with the big heavy gun has 4.
Right.
And if they are within 6 inches of a table edge
Hmm.
and not within engagement range, you can pick them up and put them in reserve.
Very cool. Like, yeah, I mean, another squad of those would be super handy. Just, I mean, for 90 points, that's exactly what you want
Mhm.
to inconvenience your opponent with and force them to shoot for those judgment tokens.
Force
Like,
them to shoot,
absolutely.
get judgment, or you can get them into the table
Ac-
quarters. You can
Yep,
get them
they can do
onto.
actions all day long. They can move far.
Yes. So I was moving them all around the board. I
Hmm.
I had one unit of them left at the end of the game because they were contesting an objective type of thing,
Right.
or they were initially and then they lost one. But then it was, yeah, so long as they're outside of engagement range and within 6 of an edge, you can lift them and put them in
Nice.
reserve.
Very
Um,
handy.
so I've got them, and then I've got 3 units of 5 Hearthguard to each go in a hecaton. So the hecatons move up, they
Hmm.
step out, the hecatons shoot, then they shoot, they reroll wound rolls, and hopefully wipe out units. And if they have to, they can charge and beat the hell out of something.
Sounds great. Sounds
Yeah.
fun. Sounds hard to beat for sure. Because those hecatons are what, T12?
D12, 16 wounds, 2 up save. No
They're
invuln,
basically land
but
raiders. They're land
yes,
raiders.
they are exactly land raiders.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a good list. It was a lot of fun. I was happy to see it actually perform. And
Yeah.
I was happy to see it perform against a tough army like Custodes, where they've got the kind of saves and that kind of thing going for
Yeah,
them.
they have things going for them. That Martial Kata, I think,
Yeah,
is it the Shield Host
yes,
detachment that lets them either gives them lethal, sustained, and melee.
yes.
I mean, that's the thing with them, though. You have to get them into combat.
And I was
It's
staying the hell away.
absolutely necessary. Yeah.
I was staying back and
Very
shooting the hell
cool.
out of them.
Oh, I'm looking forward to trying this list out. I definitely want to play it sometime
Yeah,
soon in the near
yeah.
future.
We'll
So, is
definitely
this
have to
the
do that.
list you're going to take to a tournament?
Yes. So I normally would be going. Unfortunately, I won't be able to hit the tournament up this weekend. That is
Mm-hmm.
going to be at the local game club, but the
Mm-hmm.
September one, I will definitely take this list too.
Nice, nice.
Yes, and see how it
Space
does.
Dwarf quest continues. Do you have any other games lined up for the near future?
Not yet. I'm going to try and get one in this week before I go away for the weekend, just to test it
Okay,
out again and see if it can still perform.
awesome,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Adventures with Space Dwarves.
Yes, I've been really happy with them. I think the models are great. They're really cool. I think
Yeah.
it's an interesting mechanic. They're not an easy army, but they're not a hard army because the
Mm-hmm.
the mechanic is simple. Get tokens,
Yep.
improve your shooting. But it's getting the additional tokens on sometimes that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Because you really like once you've lost your cannon fodder, you're kind of
Mm.
like, oh, I don't want to lose a hecaton. I don't want to lose the Hearthguard. I don't want to lose those, but I have to be willing to in order to make it so the rest of the army can actually
Yes.
wipe those things out.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
so yeah, it's fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you can't keep winning games though, or you're
No,
going to
I
be out of
know.
the consolation league.
I
So
only one of three. One of three. I think
one
that
of
keeps
three.
me
That's those are the stats, right? One in three.
33%.
1 in 3. That will t-shirts for the next tournament. 33%.
33%. 33%
Oh
or
man.
bust. Yeah,
Very
it's
cool.
awesome.
Very cool.
And what about you?
Uh,
You played a game recently.
I played the Zone Mortalis Horus Heresy game.
Hmm.
Heresy is a different animal. It's not quite, especially when in the community of the players that I regularly play with here. It's much more kind of friendly. No one's like coming with any kind of like list to really wipe out the other person. It's more of a narrative game,
Right.
really. That's kind of how it plays. I won that by I think like 1 point. Like I said, it was Zone Mortalis, so it's the close quarters,
Yeah.
smaller points. A lot of fun. I actually played the latest Warhammer Community Exemplary Mission download. It's like Assault on
Cool.
Castrum Vlex or something like that. It's called great. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Very thematic. I was Dark Angels facing off against World Eaters. So very narrative kind of
Hmm.
fun game to play. And then I've been playing some homebrew games. My focus right now, and I mean the big joke, like, as I said at the beginning of the episode of the homebrew games, I build 2 lists. I played Black Templars last night against Death Guard, and so I made both lists. And my
Hmm.
Death Guard, like just chewed up my Black Templars, which I guess is a win. I lost 70 to 58.
That's
Um,
not too bad. That's only
uh,
12 points. That's like a round of
but
primaries, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, it was exactly around a primaries. But it was a lot of fun, and it was only my second game of Prime Nexus, so
Okay.
playing with the new decks and the new missions. So I
Hmm.
really enjoyed that. The new variety was fun. The sabotage secondary was kind of fun to do because all of a sudden I had like a squad of 5 assault intercessors who were out of my deployment zone, kind of close to a terrain feature, and I was like, oh, so I'll just move them towards it, and they're sabotaging it. I
Sabotage,
get
so
three
long as they
points.
can survive for that
Yeah,
round.
and they were ignored the entire game, so
There
they
you
were like
go.
the perfect little action monkeys kind of thing. So it was really good.
Sabotage, containment, they can do all that stuff.
They can do all that stuff. And then what I'm doing currently is I'm doing quite a bit of hobbying, gearing up for Age of Sigmar Fourth Edition. So of course it's out right now, and I've picked up the General's Handbook, but I'm hoping to get some practice games in soon because I'm playing in a beginners tournament on
Mhm.
August 11th that I'm really looking forward to.
And as we've learned, the beginners tournament doesn't mean it's beginners tournament.
No, no, it certainly doesn't. I'm toying with two lists.
Okay.
Um, One list has like a very punchy general. It's
Hmm.
Abraxia's Varangard. I'm going to play Slaves of
Okay.
Darkness.
Yeah.
It's only 1,000 points, the whole army list. But this Abraxia, this character and her retinue, not really quite retinue, but semi retinue called a Varangard. There's 600 points of the list alone. So it's very expensive.
That's
Very
really
expensive.
expensive for a small
It's
game.
this small game. I have 4 units. Both lists are just 4 units. So
Okay. So it's going to be a small game
it's
regardless.
it's gonna be a small game regardless because the points level in AOS are much higher.
Yes.
So a basic unit of Chaos Warriors are 200 points. So you're talking about 200 points for, I don't know, like a Primaris Crusader squad.
Yeah.
It's really it's a stark
Hmm.
difference.
Now,
I
how
think a
many?
Primaris Crusader squad is like 145 or something like that, and I think that's only after because it got a points increase
Yeah.
because it's kind of punchy. Um, so you compare it to any other 10 man battle line unit in 40K, you're not paying 200 points for a
No.
10 man unit. So uh, it'll be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. So as I said, I have one list that's very combat focused, and I have another list that's also very combat focused, but has a gigantic main character. I've got a Bellacore model that I've built up, and I'm in the process of painting.
Okay.
Um, Big 400 point demon wizard
Mhm.
to lead the army. Um, but again, still only gives me 40 units to play with.
4 units, but how many wounds across the two lists are you looking at?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to look.
Because I think there's more wounds in like the
I
health is
think it
higher in AOS.
depends. So certainly on like I think Bellacore has like 14 wounds,
Yeah.
something big like that. But I think the Chaos Warriors are only like 2 wounds apiece, and the
Oh,
Chaos
okay.
Chosen are only like 3 wounds apiece. I don't think it's particularly high. The
Okay.
points are a lot higher, are a
Hmm.
lot higher. But yeah, I hope to get some rep games in, get some practice in, and report back about how that's going for
Well,
sure.
the recommendation would be to obviously pit your two lists against each other and have two people, not you, play them, and then
Yeah.
and then
And then
see how
pick the
they
one that
do.
wins. Yeah. Brilliant. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah. That would work out perfectly.
Remove the one variable that's inconsistent.
I was rolling hot yesterday. I was rolling hot. It was crazy, but
To be fair, your Death Guard list is brutal. Like I'm sure it had Mortarion, it had
Ed Mortarian, Ed 2 Plague Burst Crawlers. And I know people like now since they removed the indirect fire, they kind of nerfed indirect fire.
yeah,
The Black Templar list really didn't have an answer for it.
no.
because my Black Templars list is super melee focused, and so it just drew line of sight on guys and then
But
lobbed the mortars and shot.
and
Like
and
it's
that's
not
the
that big a deal.
and that's the problem with Death Guard. You don't want to be up close to them because that's when you're getting
The
all of the
contagion
debuffs.
range, yeah, yeah, and
Everything is
so
hitting your stat line, and so it's like you're all of a sudden not hitting the way you should be hitting.
yeah, and my stepson played the armor nerfing. So the contagion range ability that causes your saves to be worsened by one.
Yes, you played that against me once. It sucked.
It sucks. Yeah.
It's
I always
really
thought the
hard.
one that made you harder to hit was great, but the armor one
The armor one
really
just,
hurts.
yes, if you can
Really.
get shooting and melee into them, all of a sudden it's just that much harder for
It's
them to do anything.
disgusting. Yeah. Yeah. There were times where it's like, oh, I guess I just don't get a save for this. Or it's like
Yeah.
I'm saving on sixes.
Yes.
Okay. Good luck.
The one nice thing about Votan is they have one enhancement called Grim Demeanor
Hmm.
that negates any stat line
Nice.
buffs or things like that. So you can throw that onto one character and throw them into a unit, and that unit is then
We'll
immune
get the
to some of
benefit of
those.
that. That's great. Yeah.
So
Ignoring modifiers, super strong.
yes.
Cool.
So I don't know if it works on saves necessarily, because I think the saves is one that it might not, but every other stat
Mm,
line. So if it's on armor penetration, if it's on something else, it'll be fine. But I don't know about the save piece. I would have to read that one again.
right.
But
Right.
it's, yeah. But I mean, your Death Guard list is brutal for that. It was the contagion range. I don't think people appreciate that enough. Like, if people are really big into competitive, and we've talked about this
Hmm.
before, they're reading all the lists and they're seeing what's all out in the meta, and
Hmm.
it's Blood Angels, it's Eldari,
Yeah.
it's
Necrons and whatnot. Yeah.
Necrons, and some orcs and stuff like that. But when you're playing a casual game and you play against a Death Guard, you stand
Hmm.
back and you go, why the hell is this not on the top tables?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it doesn't have movement necessarily, but they are brutal with their
Yeah.
contagion range. It starts
Hmm.
off at what, 6 inches or 3 inches?
Three, three,
Three,
six, and
six,
nine.
9.
Yeah. It's strong. It's strong, especially come round two when it
Mhm.
is at 6 inches. Well, by then you're in each other's face somewhere.
Yeah,
So,
you can't be on an objective with them
no.
because it's going to kill you to try and take them off it.
Yeah. Yeah. No. It's they're a super fun army to play.
And they're great
100%.
models.
Awesome.
They're
I love the models. I can't wait. That's a codex I'm like super excited about when it comes out.
Mhm.
Because there will be a new model with it for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with them.
Mhm.
So
That's great.
yeah. All right.
All right.
Well, thanks for those of you that tuned in and wanted to hang out and with us and geek out about Warhammer.
Mhm.
Look forward to doing the next episode. We'll continue with the Space Dwarf quest and our uh, exploration of Age of Sigmar Fourth Edition.
I'm looking forward to hearing how the tournament goes and
Yeah,
how you feel the whole thing went.
yeah. And
From and what
I'll give my review of AOS. Just
Yes, and what list you picked. I'll be desperate to hear what list you
yeah,
actually go
which
with.
one actually made it through? Yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right. So if you've made it this long, yes, as Paul said, please like, comment, subscribe, and we will catch you on the next episode. See ya.
See ya.